Hello, everybody. This is Matthew and Nathan with Powershift Automotive. We did unfortunately take a hiatus for a while, but we are back and we're back for good. Honestly, that was the problem. My work schedule really sucked.
It's all your fault.
It is, it's true. But I finally I get home every weekend now, and this is something we've been really wanting to get back into. So not only is Powershift back, we also have a new home, www.powershiftautomotive.com. If you haven't already, go check it out. We're pretty proud of it. It's under construction. It is live, but I'm improving upon it every day with Nathan's help. And now that we're done plugging ourselves, we're going to roll into some stuff here. I did promise on a few of the automotive pages to get into some engine stuff on building, assembly. It would take up definitely more than one episode. Just, Nathan's very technical, and he's going to be taking the reins a lot here, because when it comes right down to it, he's built over 24 engines, ranging from Hondas to 4G63s, V8s. If there's ever some advice you want to listen to, it's definitely from Nathan. And with that being said, roll right into it.
Yeah, so starting out, are we wanting to, kind of fully cover everything here? Or do we want to do a condense?
We'll kind of condense it for now, kind of like we said,
Okay.
Preparation and...
Yeah, and anyways, starting out, engine building really comes down to, and I warned Matt that I was going to sound like a broken record on this, but it comes down to attention to detail and cleanliness. Just keeping your workspace clean, keeping all the parts clean, and the attention to detail, paying attention to your parts that you're tearing apart, reassembling, cleaning, is, that's attention to detail and high quality engine building in a whole. First thing in engine building, once you have your engine out, you're ready to tear it down, just pull it out of the car. Biggest thing that I like to cover is clean it up. It may be a little hard. You may have to mask some stuff off, cover your throttle body and different openings of the engine, but I like to give it a thorough degreasing. Throw some purple power at it, some simple green, some even just tire cleaner, whatever you have, just to spray off your original grit. You don't have to get down there with a fine-tooth comb or toothbrush or anything like that, nitpicking it that much, but get your major grit, grime, everything off of it, and it just helps the organization processes. You're not having to deal with greasy, nasty stuff as much when you're pulling it apart. I guess after it's clean and you're doing your teardown, just another attention to detail. Pay attention to everything, orientation, marking certain stuff. If you pull it off the engine, say it has like fuel rails, and there's orientations and anything that's side specific to the engine, direction, anything that's clocked a certain way. Take notes, take pictures. I do a lot of picture taking, just keeping everything organized. That way, you can come back to it. I'll admit, I try to be extremely particular when it comes to that kind of stuff and staying organized, but I forget a lot of stuff too. So I like to go back and refresh my memory and check everything out. What order stuff was in, how it came off the engine. Take photographs, step by step too. That way, you can go in reverse from those steps. Having a clean work area, just to keep parts identified and everything when you're tearing it apart. Having a notepad, jot down some quick notes along with your pictures and everything. So even as simple stuff like and if you're a YouTuber and you watch other guys, Tom's Turbo Garage, Jaffro Mobile, I've referenced them before in other podcasts. They tend to use organizing procedures as like ice cube trays and masking tape, and just to identify parts. It's just part of attention to detail and quality of a build. once you have it tore down and everything is disassembled, that's when you do, you're looking into for cracks in parts, anything that looks abnormal wear. Check all of your, as you're pulling things off, not so much like valve covers and intake manifolds and stuff like that, but you're starting to tear into your valve train in a V8, pay attention to orientation of like push rods. A lot of times they're different lengths and their orientations are different. Sometimes they have different ends on them. Some are cupped, have like a spherical end on them. Just keep those in order. There's lots of ways, mark them with masking tape. A lot of people, even will stick them into a box and mark them how they need to be. Paying attention to that, as you're tearing the engine apart, pay attention to if there was anything loose, like a loose nut or bolt. Spin it over, see if it's not sounding, something sounds out of whack. Obviously, if you had an issue and you're pulling the engine out because it was making a noise or something wasn't right with it, it's going to be a lot more obvious to you. But if you're just getting the car, it's got higher miles, and you're a gearhead like we are, and you just want to go through it, maybe you got the car off somebody that didn't know what they were doing, you're going through it just to look it over, just pay that extra attention. Just keep looking for anything that's out of place. You never know who had their hands on it. Unless you bought that car from day one and you did all the service work, you don't know what idiot had their hands in there. Somebody that was just in a hurry to flip the car for sale. You never know. You just gotta pay attention. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going through my notes here that I jotted down this Saturday at work. Yeah, once you get it completely tore down, then you're gonna do some deciding things. You're gonna, decide on your inspections. Obviously, if it has like a spun rod bearing, did the rod bearing actually spin, or was it starting to knock but it didn't spin and get into tearing up the big end of the rod. Looking at your cylinders, your cylinder heads, checking out your valves, pulling all your valves out, checking your valve seats, the faces of your valves where your valves meet the seat. Lots of different areas that I could get a lot more in depth, but just kind of going over, a general retrospect, making sure that nothing has a crazy lot of wear, especially in an instance where it's machined parts, where, it would be necessary to remachine your block or your head or your valve seats, anything like that. You're going to, that's what your deciding factor is going to be on rebuilding the engine and what your next step, your refurbishing steps are. If everything checks out clear, you don't have any overall visible damage, and you decide that you don't need to take it to the machine shop per se right at this point in time, then you can break out some of your specialty tools that I like to use. You don't necessarily have to have them, but start measuring parts. Get out, there's plenty of sources online that have your measurements and everything. What the engine would be, your factory service manuals. There's a lot of times there's PDF files of those. There's always measurements, no matter which engine it is. I mean, unless if it was from back in the 1800s and they, they wrote the notes down on scrolls and crazy stuff like that. But now, these engines, they're so well precision machined anyways, because manufacturers, they don't want to, have to do all these recall work and
right.
But yeah, you get into that, start checking your measurements on your piston skirts, your cylinder walls, measure the play in your valves, and again, I'll get into more detail on this stuff and how to measure these,
right.
But you want to do all your measurements and check to make sure your deck on your block or your decks on your block aren't warped. Make sure that your heads aren't warped. look for any abnormal wear in bearing surfaces, bearing materials, any kind of bearing material that's been scored or wiped away, or, metal on metal contact. That's, signs of reading what the engine is doing.
It's something I did want to touch on there is so many people don't really know. They'll see a bearing that has maybe superficial wear, quote unquote, but they don't know if it's out of service or not. And I know you have a way of telling, and maybe you want to share that with the thumbnail.
Right. Anything, it was one of the things that we were taught in engine machining class. Anytime you have a rod journal or a main journal, and you actually take your it's called a fingernail test. You run like your thumbnail or your index fingernail across the journal of the crank, and if there's nothing that actually like catches your fingernail and stops it as it's going by, even if you may see like a superficial like scratch mark or like a wear pattern around the journal, if it doesn't catch your fingernail, 9 times out of 10, that's definitely reusable. Now, I wouldn't say throw it in a high-performance, all-out engine build, but, for what you're doing in an average rebuild or a slightly modified build, it would be fine. And that's, another thing. You break out your micrometers and you start measuring to guarantee everything is in spec. But, and that's another whole can of worms, the machining aspect and everything, what an engine machine shop would do to take care of that.
It's just one of those things that gets asked a lot.
Right, that's one of the main tests that you can do, like for at-home machining, kind of what I'm getting into.
Exactly.
And in that deciding factor of whether, your engine needs to go to a machine shop to do further work, or whether you decide, you can continue on just an at-home rebuild. You start getting into everything, and your measurements check out fine. Everything seems to be okay. Your cylinder walls, you can get away with a quick deglaze and a ball hone to freshen them back up. Throw some new rings into it. Then everything is checking out. Then that's an awesome thing. For engines these days, you pull them apart and they're going to be 100,000, 150,000 miles. It's not uncommon to see now, but if you get into that and you're starting to realize that this engine, and man, it's really in good shape, you can pretty well, I guess, continue on with the cleaning, being extremely thorough in your cleaning. They make engine brush kits where bottle brushes, and don't be afraid to take it to the car wash. Take and pressure wash your block, clean all of your engine galleys out. Over time the coolants, they tend to break down, and the oils, that the metal is porous, it kind of soaks in different things. You're not going to get absolutely clean as a machine shop, but for at home rebuilding, it'll be absolutely fine. I mean, it's been done multiple times by many people. I've done it many a times.
Oh yeah.
It just paying attention, making sure that whatever you're using, you're cleaning it until everything is actually coming clean. You don't want any kind of extra like burn on engine oil in the crankcase, because even those can throw off measurements. It can throw off bearing torques. Just absolute cleanliness, attention to detail. Even if you are doing at home, just make sure everything is completely, perfectly clean, and 9 times out of 10 you won't have any issues reassembling it, with your OEM parts back together.
Yeah, it's one thing I wanted to say is, if your attention to detail is lacking, or you find, honestly, if we're all honest with ourselves, we're lazy about some things. If you're lazy about cleaning, do not start to assemble an engine. Find somebody who
has the patience,
willing, yes. Machine surfaces, even just a tiny piece of dirt can cause catastrophic problems down the road. That is such good advice.
Yep, it's I guess I don't want to keep rambling on about cleaning and attention to detail, but it's one of those things. Now that everything that you have is checked out, you got everything perfectly clean. Your workspace, obviously it's going to get dirty, kind of disorganized. Just go back through. Once your engine's all tore down, lay everything out that you need to do. Lay your pistons out, lay your bearings and everything. Just kind of get organized and keep everything in order, and then it'll go a little smoother that way. You'll know that everything is staying clean. You're not going to have to worry about getting things dirty.
Right.
If they're rolling around on the floor in a box, it's just keep everything completely segregated from your garage and in one spot. Like, you don't have to have a clean room, but keep an area clean while you're doing this. It's more important during your assembly process than it is a teardown, but it's a good thing to practice. Do your final inspection of your parts again. You've looked over them when you're tearing it down, you're paying attention to it. You're looking them over when you're cleaning them. And then when you're, say for instance, when you're, putting your new rings or your new valves or your new valve steels, different stuff like that in your engine. If you are using aftermarket pistons that are stock or aftermarket rings, look those over, because if your build is going well and you get a part that's faulty and you go to throw it together and something catastrophic happens and you're down and out, and because something happened because you weren't paying attention and you had a missed machine or a flawed part that you bought, that happens.
Absolutely.
It's too many people, I think, get a bad taste in their mouth because they just don't know how involving that it can be, and one little thing that it can ruin an entire building. It wasn't necessarily their fault, they just didn't know any better.
Agreed.
Blueprinting, I guess I'll go over why and why not. It's kind of one of those things that I've gotten more in depth with over these past few engine builds that I've done. A lot of them that I've done in the past, I necessarily haven't blueprinted. And what I mean by blueprinting doesn't mean that I have a white marker and a big old piece of blue paper and I'm writing down, designing an engine and drawing, stuff like that.
We wish.
It just means that you're taking time to detail, your extra attention to detail, taking measurements of every single piece and part, that's measurable, and documenting that. That way, when you're after you're done reassembling the engine, that you can go back and look and you can be like, all right, I know that I checked this part, this area, I checked this area, so on. It just, to me, it's a peace of mind kind of thing. That if something happens to that engine later down the road, it decides to chuck the number 4 rod out of the block, you can go back and look at, and say, hey, look, when I put it together, everything was fine, everything was good to go.
Right.
And then you can rule out the fact that it was something that I did or didn't do, and then you can narrow it down to mechanical failure of the actual part, and then then you have a lot more confidence in your build. Stuff does still happen, but you can narrow it down to where you're not taking the full blame, I guess, and being discouraged and stuff like that. I mean, obviously you're to the point where you're rebuilding your engine. You know what you're doing when you're working on cars, pulling your engine out, putting it back in. That's, those are two major tasks in their own.
Oh, yeah.
Before you even start to think about, tearing down an engine or rebuilding it. So, if you're at that point, what you're getting into, labor-wise, being labor-intensive and, taking some patience. So, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'd say the guys that are out there that are ready to build their engines, they have pulled them out, and they have the knack, at least. May not have that perfect attention to detail because nobody has taught them that. So, that's kind of what I'm here to cover.
Yeah, like even one of the blueprinting things I'd like to touch on is, just take for instance this 4.6 we were, building. Obviously Nathan's doing the labor, but I mean, you take measurements on just an 80,000 mile engine, and you'd be surprised at how much variation there is from cylinder to cylinder. And we have a brand new set of forged pistons, and again, you'd be surprised at the fact there's variation in brand new forged internals. So doing these measurements is important, because you don't want to take one of those brand new pistons that's just a couple thousandths of an inch, larger than one of the others, and you're sticking it in one of the tighter bores on accident. So the idea behind it is you're taking the smaller parts and you're putting those into the smaller bores, and so on and so forth. You're basically taking and matching every individual engine component exactly where it should be, and your engine's going to be that much smoother and that much more reliable down the road.
Yep. Again, back to it, attention to detail. I mean, there's no getting around it. If you want an engine to last, even if it's a completely bone stock rebuild, not necessarily having to blueprint, but just paying attention, making sure that everything is absolutely clean and everything is 100% good to go, and 9 times out of 10, you will have no issues.
One of the other huge things, it's a really quick topic I really wanted you to go over. I've seen it twice now. Once on one of the DSM pages, and I don't want anybody to think I'm picking on them, because I did it. The DSM page, and once on the Audi page, people who are doing head studs that maybe they bought them secondhand, they don't have instructions, and I've seen 2 guys snap them, and both times it was because of this. When you're doing head studs, Nathan, what is the procedure for this?
And this is the 4G. I'm sure there's many other engines that are this way.
If so far, most of them I've seen are the way you're about to say.
Right. The first thing is make sure that all your threads are absolutely clean and chased out.
Yes.
You should be able to wheel your studs in by hand, wheel them out by hand. You don't want any kind of debris in there, galling up the threads, or because it won't allow the torque load to spread evenly across the threads. But in a stud that the 4G63 uses, not saying this is applicated for every engine, because there are different designs of studs. I'm not going to get into that, but
right.
There are different designs of studs that take a different procedure. But in this case, the 4G63, you don't want to run them in and tighten them down. That will automatically put a preload tension on the bolt, and the threads aren't perfectly straight. It can actually tweak the stud ever so slightly, microscopically even, like thousandths of an inch, but it's going to ultimately put a side load torque on that stud where it shouldn't have any kind of side load. It should all be, like a stretching motion, a stretching load across the stud. There should be no lateral, any kind of torsional torque load on the head stud. And that's what ultimately can cause them to fail, because they're meant to stretch, they're not meant to shear.
Yeah, and unfortunately a couple weeks ago we seen one break on a DSM group, and he was new, and I did the same thing. I helped Nathan stud his 6-bolt, and he literally watched me do it, and then he corrected me and explained why this is the correct procedure. It was a great way to learn. A lot of guys don't have that. And unfortunately, I asked the guy the same 2 questions. Did you chase the threads, and did you run them in completely tight by hand? And he didn't chase the threads. He ran them in, and he snapped one of them. And, everybody narrowed it down to that's exactly what caused it. Now, luckily, ARP replaced it, but, it's still a bruised ego, and that could have been a huge failure had that stud not broke right then and there.
Absolutely. And back to the, kind of my blueprinting why and why not, in your instances where you would. There's been engines in the past, that I haven't gone over full blueprinting measurements and everything, and they've turned out fine. 9 times out of 10, your parts, if they're made for your engine, they're gonna fit, they're gonna go together, the way that they were supposed to, and you don't necessarily have to take measurements and absolutely go over every single last detail of the engine, and they will be fine in a stock rebuild instance. You don't have to get into extreme details like that, but it's kind of been a practice that I've been leaning to, even if it was just a back to stock rebuild, maybe with small upgrades. And it's the extra peace of mind, in my opinion. That way I can go back, I have documentation, this is what went into this engine, this is, you know, how it measured out, this is how everything is or isn't in spec, you know, and you can just go back and look over that. Where if you were to not blueprint an engine and just assemble it as if it were, you know, a puzzle and put it back together and it runs, yeah, it 9 times out of 10, again, it's gonna run fine.
Of course.
It just, you won't have those what ifs. Well, what if this wasn't right, or what if I didn't clean this properly, or what if I didn't do this? Then, you know, that's all fine and dandy. That if you can live with yourself on that, then yeah, that's fine. I mean, I've done it in the past and haven't had any issues, but I have had issues as well.
I mean, you can't be too anal. You really can't.
When you're doing your assembly, after you've done all your blueprinting, or in a case where you didn't need to blueprint and everything is clean and basically pre-assembled before the engine goes together, proper lubrication, assembly lubes, you know, making sure that that the inside of the block is absolutely clean and spotless, cleaning your bores with a transmission fluid. And you say, why transmission fluid? Another thing that I've actually come to find out over the years of engine building and different people, you know, using it, nobody ever really explained it to me. But actually, Jaffro on, you know, YouTube, it is an extremely good cleaning solvent. It will remove dirts, and, you know, if you did hone your cylinders, it'll remove those grits and the oil, not necessarily the oils, but anything that's contaminated in the cylinder walls or on the block surfaces, anywhere, you know, where you have machine parts. It extremely, like it's like a suction, like a vacuum. You literally take and wipe it out with transmission fluid. You can take a perfectly clean paper towel, or what I like to use, coffee filters. I won't get into why, but you know that they're white, I guess, and you can see very well.
They're also very lint
cheap.
free.
Yeah, they're lint free, but
very important.
You can take a perfectly clean towel or coffee filter, wipe it in a bore that is oiled, and it will come out
black.
Well, no, it will actually come out clean or with the oil on it, but it'll look clean. Oh, I thought you meant
the ATF.
Yeah, and if you in that same exact cylinder, you take and put some ATF on that rag, and then you wipe that bore, you will be surprised it will actually come out black.
It's unbelievable. We just seen that last weekend, actually, and he's like, don't this bore look clean? I'm like, yeah, cleaned it with ATF, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. It's just that little knowledge is power. That's what we're trying to share here. That was a very dirty bore, even though it looked perfect.
Yeah, I guess, back to sound like a broken record, but you know, your hard work, everything that you've done up to this point, you know, paying attention to how everything was, you know, tearing everything down, labeling everything, and you're getting back to your reassembly, you know, all that patience, that attention to detail, it's going to pay off. It's going to, not only is it going to give you a peace of mind, everything is going to go together a lot smoother. You know, it's just going to be a better connection with what you're doing. You're not going to go into it as blind. Then as you're assembling, double and triple check everything, you know, that when you're putting it in. Not necessarily your torque specs, because you don't want to retorque fasteners that have already been retorqued, and that's been a common misconception for a while in different shows, even on TV, with torque wrenches and everything, where you see the people doing the double click on their click torque wrenches. That's a big no-no, and it just over torques the fasteners and can cause premature stress and stuff like that.
Now, I don't want to sound like an elitist asshole, but this to me is very important to touch on right now, right here. Ladies and gentlemen, torque wrenches, do not, and I repeat, do not use or trust a basic Harbor Freight torque wrench. Those are great for torquing wheels, you know, stuff like that. when you're assembling an engine, spend the money and get a
At least get something
torque wrench
that has been calibrated by a certified calibration company or somebody that works with a tool supplier. You want something that has an actual calibration date, and like somebody's personally inspected that and calibrated that torque wrench.
I mean, I'll name drop a little. Nathan uses a Snap-on, which is a very expensive torque wrench. If you don't have quite that much money, S&K is traditionally half the cost of Snap-on, and I myself have used S&K on almost everything. I'm not saying it's going to be as perfect precision as a Snap-on, but I would trust it to an engine build for sure. I would not buy anything underneath that. And another thing, if you're using an extension that's going to throw off your torque reading, try to avoid using extensions when you're torquing engine fasteners.
Yep, it will be minuscule, but
it's enough.
And back to Google, Google is a powerful thing. It can be a dangerous thing, but it's a powerful thing these days. And this comes back to engine building as well. There's 1,000,001 ways to skin a cat, but there's one way to build an engine, and that's the correct way.
Yes.
So, I mean, and getting into these things, what you see on the internet, people throwing these things together, yeah, they can work. I've thrown them together, back in my learning days and experimental days and stuff like that, but to make an engine last, the detail and paying attention and going over everything, I can't iterate it enough. I've said it probably 1,000 times already, but it's that important. When you're double, triple checking and everything, and what I mean is, like, when you torque you have your crank in, you torque it down, check it, see if it spins free, make sure that everything, it should spin absolutely free. If it tightens up, instantly red flag. It's not, the engine is meant to spin over free. There should be no binding, no snags. It's the mentality of, oh, we'll just put it together, it'll wear in. No, there's something wrong.
If the cylinder head is off of it, you should quite literally be able to walk up and spin the crank by hand.
Depends. In certain instances, yes, based on your ring packs and stuff.
Yeah, like the 4G63s I've seen, I've never not been able to spin one of those over by hand.
Say, not by hand so much, but with a wrench on the end of the crank.
Right.
You should be able to move it over. There's going to be some resistance.
Right.
Especially the more cylinders that you have, the more drag you.
And if there's a head on it, obviously you're making compression now.
Right, with plugs in. Yeah, I mean,
of course.
And in block cam,
right,
stuff like that, valve train, it's all extra stuff. But you should definitely be able to turn an engine over with a wrench.
Yes.
Just making sure that everything, is free as you assemble everything. You put a piston and rod assembly in, it's torqued in. Even with, you don't have to put all of your piston and rods in before you can turn it over. Turn it over with that one. Turn it in with number 2, number 3, number 4, so on. Just to make sure that, paying attention to, all right, I put number 1 through 3 rods in, and now I put number 4 in, and now it won't move.
Bingo.
To check, there's an issue somewhere along the line there. Just check those things over, making sure that everything is falling in place the way that it should. There are specialty tools like the torque wrenches and measurement tools,
angle meters for a lot of these fasteners.
A lot of fasteners these days require a degree torque. They don't actually have a torque rate, an actual foot pound or a Newton meter measurement. They actually go off of an angle. I guess once you get to that point, you're pretty well, after everything's assembled and everything is feeling good to go, you have that peace of mind knowing that you spent every last ounce of effort making sure that your engine is going to go back together. It went back together flawlessly. It's going to be able to perform the way that you want it to, and know in the back of your mind that when you're boosting up a hill or revving that thing out, in certain instances, if you're doing a performance build,
of course,
that you don't have to second guess or cringe every time that you see the needle swing to red line. You know, it's
Right.
that's what it's about for me. You know, watching an engine come back together is a great feeling, but enjoying it and knowing that you did that and you took all that pride in it and it's gonna last and you can rip around in it, and
Of course.
that's what it's all about for me. I mean, you know.
Thanks for sure. I mean, if you guys like hearing us talk about this, we are more than happy to dedicate slots and more podcasts covering it. I mean, we need everybody's feedback. I know there's been lots of questions. I mean, we could talk engines all day.
Right. I mean, and we can break it down into sections too, like specifics. If you want to talk cylinder head rebuilding, if you want to talk engine machining, you know, if you want to talk, you know, bottom end rebuilding, oil pumps.
Whatever you guys want to hear, you just got to let us know. I mean, Nathan loves talking to engines, and, you know, one of the things I definitely think we should cover, and it's been asked like 50 times, is break-in. I mean, first thing I know I want to say right away, I consider myself a bit of an oil expert. I'm anal retentive on that. I'll let him cover that, but as far as oil filters, I know you think you're doing a good thing when you're breaking in a motor by buying the best oil filter you can. Don't do it.
Cheap oil filters.
Buy a Fram because they suck, and assembly lube can, you know, clog a good filter. You want that shitty filter, that Fram filter, when you're breaking in an engine. We actually had heard stories, you know, way back in our shop days of, you know, breaking in engines, plugging up good filters, and destroying whole engine builds. So buy the cheapest filter you can get for your brake, and
cheap
I promise
filters, and it's a huge topic that you could get into on the oils and everything like that.
It's almost like politics. Everybody's going to have their own opinion.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because there's tried and true methods that work for everybody. You know, everyone has their own opinion on what to use, and
right.
There are lots of good ways to do it. There's going to be different methods on break-in. There's going to be, you know, longevity.
Guys were kind of, you know, asking break-in, and, you know, just kind of touch on what I know Nathan does is, you know, we kind of stand by the hard break-in thing, and it's just like somebody shared Dave Buscher's post right on the Audi group. You know, if you Audi guys listening, obviously I commented on that. A hard break-in, it's just like he said, if everything is together correctly and you've assembly lubed that thing. We had an engine run 10 minutes on assembly lube alone, and we hurt nothing other than the oil pump.
Right. So, and it wasn't 10 minutes straight. Don't get that mixed up.
Now, Buscher did say he had one run 5 with no problem. Yeah. But that being said, a lot of these performance shops do stand behind a hard break-in, and, you know, there's plenty of write-ups out there. You know, it's up to you guys to go with what you know, but I know.
And a big thing is, you know, and it's just one of those procedures. I think it's kind of a universal rule of thumb. Once you are doing an initial break-in, a biggest thing is just don't let it idle real low.
Yes.
You want to keep the RPMs up, you know, not only for the fact of to keep parts moving, you want to keep those piston rings moving against the cylinder walls, you know, vigorously. You want the oil splashing around, lubing all those parts. You want to keep the RPMs up. You would think it being a new engine, keep the RPMs low, let everything bed in, but that does more harm than good, really.
It truly does. I mean, a lot of shops, like, you know, I'll name drop AMS, you know, one of the most instantly house recognizable names. They have plenty of write-ups saying, hey, you take it out. The idea is you want to have a decent tune ahead of time, and you take it out, you beat the living crap out of it, you take it home, you change the oil, you compression test it, your motor's broke in. Yeah, that's how a lot of these shops really are, and it's proven.
Yep. And it comes back again to, we're not saying that that's the only way to do it.
No,
because that's it in a performance aspect, I guess.
Right.
Different shops do different ways. There will be guys that will tell you don't do a hard break-in. Yep. And there's other guys, like, you know, that are reputable and that will do hard break-ins and have success. You know, there's many different theories behind it, which, and a lot of it depends. There's so many factors that I could really ramble on for episodes, you know.
I mean, if you're paying a shop to do your engine build, obviously you probably stop listening anyway. But, you know, follow their procedure. But if you're doing your own home rebuild, it's kind of up to you to decide in your heart the way you want to go with it. I know me, you guys on the Audi page, you guys know what I'm getting into. I will be breaking my motor in on a very hard break-in. Just, you know, throwing out my 2 cents on it. And we'll see where it goes.
And this was a rather condensed, even though I'm sure it's going on. Heck, I don't even know how long. But
no, we don't have a timer on this new app, guys. So if we are rambling on, I know a lot of you guys wanted to hear it. And I'm sure if you're already still listening, it's good to hear everybody's perspective on such an important subject like this.
And if there's something that I didn't cover or didn't cover thorough enough, feel free to like comment, or message us and ask the questions. I'll give any and all feedback that I can, to my knowledge and everything. And if not, I can research as well on my end. I'm just trying to make sure there's...
Yeah, I mean, we drop these every Sunday. You guys want to hear more? We are more than happy to do more, Like he said, Facebook, tag us in a post. I dropped the website link. There's a Connect Now button that'll put you right through to us. Any of those things, anything you guys want to hear us talk about and get our perspective on it. I mean, we're not saying we're gods or anything like that, but we've built a lot.
I'm here
of
to help
cars.
other people's out. And I'm not here to say that you're an idiot, you can't build your stuff, because everyone starts somewhere. I didn't start out knowing how to build engines. I started out making mistakes and everything. I'm just here to help guide and to the best of my knowledge and my ability to make everything simple for even one person. If I could help them out, my job was done.
Exactly. It's just more of from our perspective and from our experience. It's kind of one of those things. And we promise to talk about more, and we will cover happily more engine stuff, but it's kind of ironic because right now in our shop, for anybody who's curious about credentials and all that, there's 3 engines sitting in the shop. We have a 6-bolt 4G63, just kind of a back to stock build. It's got the head studs, the ones I messed up the first time. I mean, we have a 4.6 that's shooting for over 700 horse that it's being blueprinted. It's being thrown back together this week. But Nathan's got this 1G, and it's one of the the Powershift projects, and that 4G there, it's just rocking the stock bottom end, and it's got some upgraded stock size valves. We got some springs for it. Knowing Nathan, it'll be stock for a little while, and then it'll slowly snowball into something kind of like what it used to be.
Yeah,
that car's been through a lot of changes.
It has. Over the years, though, I mean, it's just kind of an evolving project. It's gone up, it's come down. It's it's just one of those things. As jobs changed, locations changed,
right,
and different circumstances have caused different changes with that car. Other projects, acquiring lots of other projects have.
Oh yeah, he stays really busy. I mean,
other people's projects.
Yeah, he's working on my car constantly. He despises that car's existence. The 4.6. We had built another 4G63. I mean, that's one of many 4G63s. But you guys hear a lot about my car that mostly sits in the driveway with a dead battery like it is right now.
And another thing that I wanted to mention too is I'll be working on different like tech articles and posting up different things as I'm going on my engines, or I'll post something up and maybe have Matt do a short article on it or anything like that, kind of explaining what's going on and what we're getting into. Yeah, and trying to be thorough with pictures, explaining what's going on and everything. So, and we'll cover different sections of things, in more depth, like tools, specialty tools to use, procedures, stuff like that. It's all stuff that I love to do. It's second nature to me pretty much nowadays. So if I can get it out there and help as well, that's, I like to do that as well.
We're fully intending on, just so everybody knows, I've kind of talked to some people about it. We're going to probably be getting a GoPro and, a nice tripod. I need a better computer. I kind of got a archaic netbook that does well for writing articles, but it's not real good for videos and editing. So as we're assembling some of these engines and we start to show our face a little more,
see our ugly mugs.
Exactly. I mean, look guys, we're amateurs. We just do this for fun. We're not making it. No, we just enjoy doing it. But we would love to actually throw up some videos. The stuff Nathan's talking about. would love to, put his face right on camera and show you guys, how to use a dial indicator, how to use a micrometer. We could really dumb it down. That way you have an idea. So instead of, paying one of these stupid online courses, screw that. We'll show you for free. We'd be more than happy to make some of these videos if you guys want to see them.
Yeah, and even at request. If it's within our capabilities and we have the know-how and the tools, and it doesn't require any crazy specialty machining equipment,
right.
I'll research it if I don't know how to do it, and do my best.
Learning, yeah. I mean, it's just like our website says, we're the most interactive guys out there, and it's no problem to try to help out a fellow enthusiast. It's stuff we love doing, and we plan on making some video series. And I have my build coming up. I'm wanting to do the 20 valve into the 5000. You guys have been so helpful to me, actually, with putting that together. So I would love to video doc that build and show you guys. We've never disassembled 20 valves, so it's gonna be learning for us, and we would love to kind of do a time-lapse video of honing it out, blueprinting it, showing you guys what it takes to throw it together to our level of just being completely anal, because it's not going in the car until it's perfect.
And not only that, kind of what I'm looking forward to is obscure normal cars.
Right.
Like, I know that sounds very contradicting.
Yeah, of course.
But that's what I'm looking forward to. We have a few different cars that we have some videos in mind to do, like a rally neon, or an autocross minivan or something like that. Just different things that you could go and buy a vehicle cheap, do cheap modifications, and be different and experience a different realm, something that you wouldn't think, like different things, thinking out of the box, and having unique cars, doing a budget build and sharing it with you guys. I personally look forward to doing a lot of that.
Yeah, we've always wanted to do some YouTube channel stuff, and we've had some great ideas over the years, and we're both at the point where it's like, put up or shut up, we're ready to do it, we're ready to get the equipment. And the biggest thing is just honestly being informative, but also being hilarious. Who wants to watch just the most dry technical? If you want to do that, there's plenty of Morgan Freeman voiceovers. That being said,
you could have me do just a show by myself. I'm sure that would bore everybody to death. But
we want to do some stuff that's going to be entertaining, informative, stuff that nobody's doing. There's plenty of videos out there, guys, reviewing Ferrari, stuff like that. There's not a whole lot of videos out there of guys doing rally neons, driving through cornfields, and we do plan on doing some stuff like that, and
bringing back forgotten cars and making them cool.
We have so many good ideas like that, and if there's stuff again you guys want to see, then shoot, let us know. I mean, we have Nathan's, he's got some DSMs, and I have the Audi, which is very odd in its own way. He's got the Neon, a Jeep, a Scat Pack Challenge. We have a wide assortment. If there's anything more you guys want to know or learn, then we'll do our absolute best to make sure we get that out to you.
Most definitely.
Yeah, without question.
I'd say it was definitely a good episode. And pretty well wraps everything up that I can think of as at this moment for engine building, and kind of covering everything that we have planned to do. And I'm sure that we'll have another kick-ass episode planned out for next week, when it comes time.
Yeah, and I'm on Instagram as well. I actually just posted up a picture of a 4G636 bolt head before and after combustion chamber cleaning, and we're going to be